the fact that you just don't want to do these things. You see, this is all related to my grand theory of procrastination, or as I like to call it, my unified theory of procrastination in academia. Yes. The most awesome acronym ever. Yeah, this theory of mine, my theory kind of goes back to what I call in early comics the Newton's laws of graduation. So the Newton's laws of graduation, in case you haven't seen it on the website, the Newton's laws of graduation, the first law of graduation says that a grad student in procrastination they tend to sustain procrastination unless an external force is applied to it. This is formalized more in the second law, which says that the HA of a doctoral or master's or undergrad thesis process is directly proportional to the flexibility F given by the advisor and inversely proportional to the student's motivation M, which we can write as an equation as H of the thesis equals the flexibility divided by motivation, which we can abbreviate as A equals F over M. Which we can rewrite as F equals MA. And we all know you can't argue with F equals MA. And thank you so much for laughing at this joke. One time I gave this presentation to a group of arts and social scientists. Complete silence. Very uncomfortable. Yeah, so that's my theory about procrastination. And so let's explore this equation in more detail. And let's start with the bottom term, motivation. Because, I think everyone starts graduate school bright and enthusiastic and ready to take that next step in your life and turn that corner and face the challenges of graduate school. Except grad school is more like it's kind of more like that. Or, if you were to plot this complex psychological phenomenon in the motivator meter, you usually see motivation start really high, but then quickly that first year, it all crashes down. And I think it all crashes down for a couple of reasons. First of all, you have to get used to being average. Right? Maybe you thought you were smart, or maybe you thought you were one of the better students in your class, but then it turns out everyone in grad school was one of the better students. Also, you find out grad school makes you dumber, contrary to what was advertised. Right? Because before you're fresh out of college, you think you're pretty smart because the difference, the ratio between what you think you know and what you think you don't know.
Demonstration of Wirecast.
It's pretty good. You feel good. But then you get to grad school. And you realize how much you don't know. Right? Because suddenly you're exposed to all these really smart people and all these brilliant people. And so then what happens to a lot of people is you start to compare yourself. You know who I'm talking about here. That person in your class or your lab that just works all the time, makes you want to. But don't do it. Trust me. Yeah, you end up comparing yourself. You compare yourself to your peers, to your students, fellow students, to your professors, to your postdocs, or anyone in your lab, and you end up feeling like an imposter. So it's actually a well-documented thing that they've seen in students and in professors even, that it's called imposter syndrome, where you think that maybe the only reason you've made it this far was an error that somebody made. You feel you're not as smart as everybody else and you just don't belong. Still, you hang in there. And maybe you get excited about the research project that you're working on until you find out it's impossible. Maybe you get motivated about your qualifying exams or your final examinations, right? But then you actually pass, and you can't even get out of bed anymore. Still, you hang in there. You hang on to your motivation, and you slowly claw your way up the motivation chart, little by little, until that one day when you get that phone call. You know which phone call, right? That phone call from your friend. Right, the friend that calls you and says, "Hey, how's it going? Oh, I have this great job. I have a family now. We just had a baby. Like a real baby." All the pictures of the baby are on Facebook. In fact, their profile picture is a baby, which is kind of weird. But they're like, yeah, we have this great life. We have nice jobs. We just bought a house. And you're like, what? You can buy houses? Meanwhile, you're on the other line, all by yourself, alone at night, still in the lab, eating instant noodles. And that's when kind of things start to look scary for a lot of students, because that's kind of when fear sets in. Fear, I think of a couple of things. First of all, fear of failure. I think a lot of people who do get sort of afraid of failure, or it's hard for them to admit when they haven't succeeded and when it's better to keep moving on, Of course, the problem is you also get fear of moving on. Right? Because, for those of you who are in postgraduate school here, right, it can be a comfortable lifestyle, right? You can walk into your lab at what? 10 a.m., 11 a.m., 11, noon? Yeah, a lot of people are actually afraid of what will happen if they graduate, right? Because if you graduate, you have to decide what you want to be when you grow up. Right? You get afraid of rejoining the real world outside of the university, outside of the walls of academia, right? You get afraid of that, It's kind of like what happens to people in prison. Yeah, so I see a lot of people, a lot of students, undergraduates, grad students, they get really freaked out and they end up procrastinating a lot. They do other things besides their schoolwork, besides their research. And so my message to you guys here today is that procrastination, it's okay. It's okay because a very significant point for me in my career as a student, a very significant point for me was to take a class from this professor called Bernie Roth. And Bernie Roth is this world-famous, world-renowned expert and researcher in the field of kinematics and robotics, very well-known. Perhaps,
This is a demonstration.
Okay, you've never heard of him. Bernie Roth is also this very groovy kind of 70s kind of dude, and so he would always challenge his class, just like I'm going to ask you guys here right now, to tell me what are some of the things in life that you have to do. Let's start with that. What are some of the things in life that you have to do? You have to eat? Yeah. You have to sleep? Sleep, right? Yeah. You have to pay your bills, you have to pay your taxes, and you have to get a job. That's usually what people say. In life, he would notice throughout the many years he was a professor, he would notice that students would use language like this. Oh man, I'm really stressed out. I have to finish this. I have to finish my homework. I have to finish this project. I have to get good results. I have to publish this data. Whereas his point was that really in life, there's nothing that you have to do. Basically, nobody's making you do any of these things. Not even to eat, not even to sleep, not even to do your homework. Basically, he would say, everything you do it because you want to do it. And so I thought, whoa, that's really interesting, right? If that's true, then I say that procrastination is what you do when you're doing what you want to be doing. Right? If everything you do it because you want to do it, then even procrastination has that kind of equal value, and so it's a good thing, right? Just ignore the logical fallacies there. Don't worry about it. Basically, the main message is to maybe just relax a little bit, enjoy it, and listen to your inner procrastinator. Now, I know what some of you might be thinking right now, which is, Jorge, all this procrastination stuff, all that's great.
This is a demonstration of
that's all good. But what if I never graduate? How does any of that help me get out of this place? Well, fortunately for all of us, in whatever you do in life, there are other terms in the equation. So as small as this bottom term here may get for you, inevitably the upper term up there will get even smaller.
This is a demonstration.
And here I would try to make a joke about L'Hopital's rule. No. Three math majors would understand that. Basically what happens is that, the final decision to finish something or to graduate or to do your project or your final or your homework, the final decision is always made for you. Inevitably, you'll run out of time, you'll run out of money, you'll suddenly come up with a deadline that you will not want to miss. Because one of the things I noticed about getting your PhD, if you guys ever go into your PhD, or for those of you who are getting your PhD, one of the things I noticed is that nobody's ever really happy with their thesis. If you ask any professor, anyone with a PhD, if they were 100%, 100.000% happy with the final product they turned in at the end, most likely, I would bet they'll tell you, not 100%. Most likely they'll tell you they ran out of time, they ran out of money, so they just had to grab all this research they had done up to that point, anything they could, put it all together into this one document, check that all the margins were the right size, very important, you guys, and then just shoved it out the door. Because the other thing I noticed about grad school is that, if you look at anyone who's famous in your fields of research, any of the big names, any of the world-renowned experts, if you look at the work they're actually famous for, most likely, I would bet, they're not famous for the work they did as graduate students. They're most likely famous for the work they did as professors, right?
Demonstration of Wirecast.
Kind of scary. Right? But it's when they were professors, right? Because that's when they had grad students do the work for them. So one day you realize all these things and you ramp up the motivation chart, and then it gets a little bit bumpy because I don't have time to cover here today what happens after this. I'll leave that for my future work.
This is a demonstration of Wirecast.
All the postgraduates know why that's funny. You always say future work in your presentations. Yeah, you realize all these things and then you graduate. But I will sort of leave you with one more piece of advice, which is that, when I was a grad student, I would notice that a lot of students would get really stressed out and they would worry a lot because they think their professors are like these gods that are looking at them and judging their every word and everything they do, and so it really stresses people out. And so I always like to say that, you know what, your professor, well, probably doesn't think you're an idiot, because the fact is he or she really he or she really doesn't think about you that much. And so just to wrap up my presentation here, I also like to have this slide at the end of every presentation too, because I feel like people see my comics and they see the movies and they see my presentation, and they assume that I have a very cynical view about academia and getting your PhD and getting your master's degree. And so they always ask me, like, Jorge, do you wish you had never gone to graduate school, or do you wish you had quit graduate school? But I always like to tell people that, no, I'm really glad that I went into it. I'm really glad that I stuck with it and was able to finish the degree, because I do feel you learn a lot of very important skills in graduate school that are very important, that will carry you into whatever career you guys choose for yourselves. Very important skills, starting with, first of all, you get pretty good at the PowerPoint presentations. Very, very good. Second most important skill I learned in grad school was how to write bullet item lists. But by far, the most important thing I learned in graduate school was how to give a 1-hour presentation on any topic. Even procrastination. No, I kind of made fun of it, but I'm actually serious about this. I think in grad school, you learn this ability to teach yourself anything technical that you need to learn. You become an independent self-learner. You also learn the ability to think analytically and be able to break things down into its components. And you also learn the ability down here to kind of keep in mind the big picture of things and then be able to communicate that to other people. Okay, now everyone's really disappointed because he had a positive message at the end. So I'll leave you guys with the words of Mike Slacknerney, who said that grad school is a state of mind. And which state would that be? Preferably sleeping, which you are interrupting. Now go away. So thank you. Thanks. Sure, I can take questions. What's that?
We'll take questions downstairs.
Okay, sure, great. I'm told that I have to answer your questions. That I am contractually obligated to answer your questions. No, I'm just kidding. Does anyone have any questions? Questions? Yeah. Oh, just one question. Oh, just got it. Okay. All right, what's the question?
Yeah, in grad school, one of the primary motivators of not doing anything is the fear of rejection from a journal or from your supervisor. Do you have anything to say on that? How to manage that?
How to handle fear of rejection?
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is a demonstration.
Now I'm really afraid you're not going to like my answer. No, I'm just kidding. I always say that that's only a problem if you care. All right. Is that it? Just one more questions? Okay, yeah, more questions. Yes, more questions. Yeah.
of Wirecast.
What's the most valuable thing you have procrastinated for or on, whatever? Like, what's the most important thing you have missed on? You have procrastinated on,
What's the most important thing I've ever procrastinated on?
apart from your thesis, if you find it important enough.
Oh, yeah. Well, my favorite thing that I procrastinated was I married my girlfriend after 10 years. 10 years, yeah. But totally worth it, totally worth it.
I have seen your first movie, PhD Part 1. In that movie, which character is you?
Which what?
Which character in that movie is you in real life?
Oh, the PhD movie. There's a movie based on the comic strip called the PhD movie. How many people have seen the PhD movie? Oh, nice. How many have seen the PhD movie legally? Okay, all right, 3 people. Good. That's all right. It's okay. I was not the director. I was the writer and the producer on those movies, but I was not the director. Yeah. I think I would just have a cameo, you know.
This is a demonstration.
Was that
of
the question?
Wirecast.
Good. Yeah. What's that? Oh, what is Newton's third law of graduation? Wow, like a technical question. Jeez. Newton's third law of graduation says that for every action towards graduation, for every action towards graduation, there's an equal and opposite distraction.
Thank you for the wonderful talk, Mr. Chang. So coming up next, we have an LED show by Atmosphere Performers.
This is a demonstration of Wirecast.
The LED show. So coming up, we have an LED show by Atmosphere Performers. This will start in a while, followed by the screening of George Cham's PhD 2 here in the auditorium itself. Post that, we are going to have a talk by Alex Hutchinson, Creative Director Ubisoft, associated with games like Assassin's Creed. His talk will be held at the Outreach Auditorium at 10:30.